All right, so it's Article 5 for Dummies, Episode 3. We are here today to talk about what the topics that the delegates are allowed to speak about once selected and how the process works from there. Each resolution is written with specific topics placed in the resolution, state by state. These delegates are agents of the state legislature, so they are beholden to the state legislature, just like any other officer that gets appointed by the legislature. And we're going to go ahead and dig into some of the nuts and bolts of how it might work and what types of amendments might come from it. Definitely leave in the comments what amendments you'd like to see come of it. Try to keep it to the three topics we discuss. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so there's a lot of talk about, well, what happens once the delegates get selected? You know, what's to control what they get to talk about, what they're going to discuss, and things like that. And there are controls put in place. There are things put in that specifically outline what the delegates may speak on. Some will tell you that there aren't, but there just simply are. We've taken all of those resolutions state by state, the ones who have passed and the ones even who are voting on it now. And we have listed them all for you state by state on our website. So you can go to our website, you can check that out, and you'll find, and I encourage you to read more than one, okay? Certainly read your state, but read more than one, just so you can start to see the consistency that's being presented with these resolutions. Because the states are not trying to just give open carte blanche to delegates to go out there and do whatever the hell they want to do, which, by the way, the states could do if they wanted to. If the states all put out resolutions that were similar to what were put out for the Constitutional Convention, all right, then yeah, they're leaving wide open area, because the Constitutional Convention, yeah, they put out that they wanted to maintain the Articles of Confederation, but they also put in what they wanted their end goals to be, which was a firm federal government and a solid union. Those two were completely incompatible. And in a video we just recently put up, Madison makes that case in Federalist Paper 40, which we go through with you in that video. You should definitely check it out, where Madison explains that there's no way that we did exactly what we were tasked to do based on the goals that you wanted to accomplish, right? And we get into that in that video. You can check that out. But here, they're listing off three topics, all right? And the three topics that they list off are term limits for all federal officials, not just elected officials, okay? So for those who want to say we have term limits, they're elections, no, they're not. You don't elect the SCOTUS. You don't Supreme Court of the United States. You don't elect deep state officials. You don't elect those people, all right? But yet they stay in power forever. All right, so it's not about just elected officials, it's about everyone. The bottom line and the premise being, this is service, not a career. All right, you get into politics. All right, today people get into politics to get wealthy. You're supposed to get into politics to serve. Okay, and many who get in to serve end up staying because they want to get wealthy. All right, and they enjoy the power. All right, because that power grows the longer that you're there. All right, and that's a problem. That's a problem. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But second one is fiscal restraints in the federal government. So things like repealing the income tax or balanced budget amendment is a very popular one, forcing the government to not spend more money than it takes in. You actually have to be responsible and have a budget. You cannot continue to go under this bogus emergency powers nonsense that has literally been going on forever and pretend that it's okay that you're not presenting a budget and that you're clearly, especially at the same time when you're spending millions of dollars to study Japanese quail doing cocaine. Yeah, that's a thing. All right, so unacceptable, right? And then the last one is government overreach. So this is a wide open one as well. We'll address the goal of the government overreach one is designed mostly for regulatory agencies, but really in a general sense, amendments that get the government out of things that they are not allowed to be in via the 10th Amendment. Now, the 10th Amendment says all powers not explicitly granted to the federal government by the states, by the Constitution, belong to the states or the people. Okay, yet somehow the government, through bribery, has worked its way in to control education, to control environmental policy, to control, workplace policy. OSHA, CDC, and these are organizations that have gone way above and beyond what they're allowed to, even under legislature, what they're allowed to do. But as Gorsuch put it, even if the legislatures gave them the authority to do this stuff, it's unconstitutional because they cannot make a law, which is what a regulation is, okay? You don't get to just rename it and pretend it's not a law. It's punishable, all right? And if those are going to be made, they need to be made by elected officials, by people who are accountable to the people. You cannot have people that are unaccountable to the public making laws, period. So that's one of the things that would address. Another one, which I really like, and I heard Mark Meckler actually mention this. I guess he was on O'Reilly doing an interview, and he mentioned a single subject amendment. So the single subject amendment, this is another sweeping thing that would cure a lot of ails. And this would affect basically, if you're going to pass a bill, if Congress is going to pass legislation, that legislation needs to be on a single topic. That you don't get to pass a veteran spending bill and then tie all kinds of garbage on the back of it because you know it won't pass. But you're doing it as a tactic because then you can, and both sides have done this, by the way, Republican and Democrat have used our veterans in this way. And they put this garbage on the back end of it that they know the other side cannot agree to. And then when the other side doesn't agree, they start putting out advertising and going on to all the talking heads saying, this side doesn't want to help veterans, right? That kind of stuff will be over. It'll be a single subject. You want to write legislation, write it. Put it on, keep it on topic. Stay on topic, right? So those are some examples of what these three topics are. Now, you may hear from people that, the delegates aren't obliged to stay on the topics. They can do whatever they want. Well, that's just factually incorrect. The delegates are an agent of the state, okay? They're an officer of the state. They're created. Their entire position is created by the state legislature. All right? Governors have no say in this either. It's the state legislatures. All right? The state legislatures select these delegates, and they can select as many delegates as they want, but the delegates don't gain magical powers once they're selected. They're being selected under the resolution for the Convention of States. They are beholden to that. Now, does that mean that they can't go in and have these conversations anyway? Theoretically, they could, but they'll never get them approved. Okay, the convention is just proposing amendments. They're not ratifying them. This idea that they somehow, that's it. They become, constitutional gods. It's just wrong, and it's designed to scare you. All right, that's what that narrative, and it successfully has done so for many conservatives. All right, many conservatives. All right, they think this is just some wide open, willy-nilly process. Yeah, because the founders are so known for their wide open and willy-nilly processes. No, it's not. It was well thought out. It was unanimously voted on by the convention, by the original Constitutional Convention, to make sure that Article 5 got edited in this way. Thank you, George Mason, who brought that case. But once he brought that case, it was full agreement. Because the case was simple. How can you leave amendment power, to the power to propose an amendment, only to the federal legislature? The reality of the matter is an amendment, by its very nature, is designed to address a wrong. Is designed to address something that has not gone right. And if that thing that's not gone right is the federal government, do you think they're going to propose an amendment that stops it? Of course not. This is why it's never been used in 230 plus years, because there's only one reason to use it, and that's when you're going to thwart the power of the federal government. It's only when you know the federal government will not make these proposals on its own. That's the only time it's needed. So for every other amendment, all right, 13th, 14th, list goes on, you can have Congress propose it. That's fine. They can propose it because everybody's in agreement on those issues. But everybody's not going to be in agreement when it's people versus government, it's people. Okay, that's how our system was designed to work. So when it's people versus government, you cannot ask the government for permission to restrict the government. That's clearly, and the founders saw this, and it was the only thing unanimously voted on. It just went through, period. People were just like, yeah, that makes sense. All right, it's in. No debate. And this is outlined in Madison's notes, all right, from September 15th, 1787. So you can go look that up yourself. Just put in Medicine's notes, put the date in, and you'll see that this went through without debate. All right, and it should have. But over the years, all right, globalists understood one thing. That quietly, okay, because not a lot of people talk about Article 5, so quietly, they understood that this is the most dangerous thing in the world to Marxism that there could be. That if term limits and government overreach and fiscal restraints get put on the federal government, well, that's going to blow everything up, right? I mean, we've got the Rothschilds and the central banks, right? How do they control? Where do they get their power from? Debt. They get their power from debt. If it's not for debt, if it's not for the U.S. overspending, the Rothschilds are just another wealthy family. Like, it doesn't matter if you have 1 trillion or 50 trillion. It doesn't make a difference. You're just another wealthy family. You don't have a military. You're just another wealthy family. And the fact of the matter is, if the United States paid off its debts, they would be rendered powerless. Still very wealthy, but just powerless. All right? There are big people who are very concerned, very worried about the United States people and our state legislatures taking this power back. All right? And let me tell you something. It doesn't have to be patriots, all right? I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If you love the United States of America, you're not someone who needs to be worried. The people who need to be worried are the Marxists. That's the reality. Okay, so, and the fact of the matter is, I want to give you one example of one state legislature resolution just so that you can see what the language looks like and get a feel for how this works. So here is Resolution H3660. This is the resolution that just passed committee in Massachusetts. We picked them because that is one of the more liberal states that are entertaining the idea. And it states the following. Resolved, that the legislature of the state of Massachusetts hereby applies to Congress under the provisions of Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States for the calling of a convention of the states limited to proposing amendments to the Constitution of the United States that can impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and limit the terms of office for its officials and members of for members of Congress. So you can see how that limitation is in everyone's legislation. All right, everyone's resolution. So it is not something that's willy-nilly. This is what they're passing. There's no up in the air. This is what the state of Massachusetts is passing. And this is what the other states are passing. So it further says, resolved that this application constitutes a continuing application in accordance with Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States until the legislatures of at least 2/3 of the several states have made applications on the same subject. So again, Massachusetts, in their resolution, saying they're pulling out if the subjects change. They have to be on the same subject. So for those who go, well, where does it say that in the Constitution? It doesn't say that in the Constitution. Because it's understood that the states are sovereign. The states are deciding these matters, not the not the federal government. The Constitution gives authorization for them to hold the convention. How the convention is held is up to the individual sovereign states. That's how it works. Now, there are some states that may very well be adding in separate legislation, and that legislation will be written to add additional restrictions, all right, on their delegates, which the states are free to do. All right? They don't have to. In my opinion, that's not necessary, because even the delegates understand that if they come back with some crazy stuff like we want to overturn, and I don't even know anyone who supports that stuff, but if they want to come back and say, hey, we've decided we're going to overturn the Bill of Rights, well, good luck getting 38 states to sign off on that. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. All right? And that really is the failsafe. All right, this is not easy. This has taken years, and it's going to take a few more years before it finally gets done. This process was designed to be very difficult. All right, you have to have a large consensus, and in the populace, there is a large consensus. All right, 2/3 of all voters, no matter what their party affiliation, agree with the amendments. All right, so now we're splitting hairs over the process on the state level to say, the states can't be trusted. State legislatures were trusted by the founders for one reason and one reason alone. They're the closest to the people. Okay? You can go out and meet your state legislature. state legislator. Okay? You can go out and meet these people. You can reach out to them. You'll get a response. All right? They read the letters that come to them. All right? Because they're dealing with smaller populations. And their districts are what got them in office. And they are there for a reason. And they are good-hearted people. And when you see COS make and the grassroots folks make these appeals to the legislatures, they're not screaming at them. They're thanking them for their service. They're appreciating what these legislators are. And they're having dialogue. Even in Massachusetts, where it's all on the left, and this is supposed to be a right cause, right? It's supposed to be all on the right, which it's not, but that's the narrative. Well, when these people on the right went to these people on the left and made their case and told them what their concerns were, well, you know what? It passed committee. And is now going to be voted on in the Massachusetts legislature. How does that happen? If this is partisan, how does that happen? It happens because state legislators are not the same. You could find a corrupt one here. I'm not saying they're human. So as long as there's human beings involved, you'll find that someone corrupt. But as a whole, that body is a lot closer to the people than any other body, any other political body in this country. And this is why the power went directly to them. All right? It doesn't take a lot of citizens to overthrow a state senator. You get 100, 200 really motivated citizens, they can primary that guy or girl. All right? So they're very beholden to the citizens in that way. And the reality is, if they're not, they can be dealt with a lot easier than federal elections. Okay? So But I hope you got something out of the three topics. I would encourage you to go watch the mock convention. I think it was a very good watch, although I am into this sort of thing. But I'm assuming if you're still watching this, that you are too. So give that a look. I'm going to put this whole series, the playlist for it, at the end of this video, so you can just click on that and be able to pick up on the ones that you missed. Previously, we covered what Article 5 is. We went over the language of it, and then. The next one, and I also put out some other videos, but just check it out. I don't want to get into each one. Just click on the link after this video, and it'll take you to the playlist so you can get up to speed on where we're at. Because as this series goes on, it's going to start getting less and less for dummies and more, for people who have learned quite a bit about it. So definitely go out, check these other argumentative sites out there. You can be more than happy to look into Common Cause, which is a Soros organization, which has started a petition with some 250 other organizations, many of which are Soros organizations as well. Daily Kos, Media Matters, MoveOn.org, and then of course Common Cause itself. And they were in opposition to this, and there's a reason for that, and I think I outlined that earlier. So I hope you got something out of this. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for our YouTube channel. We also have presence on Facebook. So please, if you're watching us on Facebook, follow the page, okay? We appreciate the likes, but we really need the follows. So if you could follow the page, that'll get you alerts. We're giving updates on everything COS. So there's a ton of movement right now going on in convention states. Kansas is getting ready to vote. Iowa, Pennsylvania is looking like they're going to jump on board. Wisconsin and Nebraska already did jump on board. South Carolina just passed committee. They're going to be voting on it. So all this stuff is coming up in the coming weeks. So if you want to stay on top of it, make sure you're subscribed here, and we'll get you that information as soon as we get hold of it. All right. Until next time, I'm out.
And like that,